Welcome to Morning Coffee and Mimosas. I'm Christina.
And I'm Joe.
We are a father-daughter duo. We come here Sunday mornings, but you can come here anytime you please. We banter about life, about business, and we do it over coffee and mimosas.
Good morning, Christina.
Good morning, Dad. That was a nice little air guitar you had going.
Yeah, I still like that little melody.
Listeners, you can't see it, but you can live through my eyes.
If you want to.
See the world through my eyes.
Yeah.
As the music was playing, Dad was rocking out to the air guitar.
Well, since I played it, I mean, I actually could do that.
You can. I can also play the air guitar. That's a musical ability I have.
Guitar, yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's the real one. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good to have you here this morning.
Good to be here, Dad.
There you go. Good. And since, this is a pretty funny way to say what the topic is, but since we have a meeting every week, this is about having effective meetings.
Would you say that our meetings are effective, Dad?
I think the listeners have to decide that. So chime in if maybe we don't want to hear you, but
this is a topic that I really like because I'm going to just speak for the audience here. I'm going to speak for everybody, I think, when I say we have all been a part of many, many meetings that you leave and you say, well, that meeting could have been an email.
Correct. That was a waste of time.
Or that was a waste of time.
That was blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think as we all have many experiences where we look at kind of what lays in front of us and we say, man, that was probably unnecessary, right? Or we all kind of critique what could have made that either a good use of time or how could that have been handled differently to make things more efficient.
Right.
Today, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to meetings that we've participated in or led ourselves. What are things that we've learned, things that we've seen, and ways that we can ensure to have good meetings or more good meetings and more productive meetings that, people enjoy and that actually lead to action.
You know what I love? One thing I love about this podcast?
What?
I can vent. I actually have a voice. I can vent.
I have seen you vent outside of the podcast, but yes.
Yeah,
now,
but this
are you
is
just
like,
happy that now you get to publicly vent?
Publicly vent.
You
yes,
get to air your grievances?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What is that? There's a, was it a Family Guy episode? He goes, what really grinds my gears? What really grinds my gears?
Yeah,
anyway.
Well, this is it.
I digress.
No, I'm happy about this. And I like the way you said, like, that could have been an email or whatever, because I think the evolution of a meeting should be, well, there's a lot of reasons to have meetings, so I'm not being overly simplistic, but I guess I kind of am in one way. It's like if you and I are emailing each other, and then you know how it gets to the point where I'm just going to pick up the phone and call you because this is getting out of hand.
Right.
And then it's like the next step from that, like, you know what, we just spoke and we need to involve whomever, whatever it is, so we have a meeting. So, that would be a rationale for a real meeting, something like that.
Agreed. And I think a lot of times it's thinking about, is there something that needs to be explained or conveyed that can't be done in an email? Or if there seems to be ambiguity and you need to bring people together, get consensus, and get alternate points of view, thoughts, and opinions in a dynamic way, it's a good time to have a meeting.
Right.
But,
and then sometimes there are meetings that are good. Like, in other words, let's say a departmental meeting and people get together from multiple departments, right? And then they're so good and effective that we make them monthly. And then they're so good and effective for about 3 months. And then they're not, but we keep doing it because it's a department, So this whole thing about meetings, it fits the thing of everything lives and breathes and has a cycle and whatever. And I think we shouldn't just do things because we always have, or not do them because we always have, and so on. So that's why I was really excited to talk about meetings this week.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because we've got to try and get ourselves out of the programming of these are the types of meetings. This is when we should have a meeting, and we should just start thinking about it as what has to happen? And in order for that to happen, do people need to get together? Can there be, a couple channels of communication where there's an email happening and then it gets an approval? Or is there something that we actually need to pull everybody together, gain consensus? And I think you're so right. Like sometimes you have a good meeting and then everyone's like, yeah, this was great. Let's do more of this. But then all of a sudden it becomes that thing that now it's like just a checkbox, right? You're checking it off.
Exactly.
We had our quarterly meeting, right? But it wasn't needed at that point in time.
Or I should have talked to you, but I said, I'll talk to her at the meeting. And then of course I don't write it down or I don't record it. And then I don't remember to do that. And then 2 weeks went by and we didn't talk about it. So this is good. Even these few minutes we're just talking about that, just think about, do we need the meeting? And if we're not having meetings, should we have a meeting? You know what I mean? Like, think about that. So
as you're thinking about, and we're kind of breaking down, if we think about steps or ways or, meeting hacks, right? What are the things that need to be true in order for a meeting to be a good meeting? I think the first thing is you've got to pre-plan. Have an agenda and make sure that the intent is clear.
Christina, you know what? If we, what are we in? 7 minutes? We're done. That's it. Really, that's so good. I wish just if you thought about it, exactly it, plan the meeting. Because sometimes you call the meeting and then if you plan it ahead of time, you might realize I don't really need the meeting.
Exactly.
That was very good.
So I think I always
say that again. It was very good.
Say it again for the people in the back. As you are
and
thinking,
the idiot in front of you who wants to make sure he has it.
As you are thinking about before you hit send on your Outlook invite or Gmail or whatever you use, before you hit send, make sure that you have put pen to paper and said, this is the meeting intent and this is the outcome I need. If you can't define the intent and outcome, you should not plan the meeting.
Correct.
And then from there, an agenda is born.
Correct.
And I think that agenda, like anytime you send something, even if it's 3 bullets or a sentence, make sure that there's something that goes along with it so the people that are receiving the meeting clearly know what is the purpose of the meeting, what's the intended outcome, so that they can start kind of thinking about
it and be able
what
to
their
contribute,
role is in the meeting.
Correct. Contribute positively to that meeting. That's excellent. And then I'm going to add my pet peeve, which is timeliness.
That's true.
So if you have a meeting at 2:00, and I don't care if this is Zoom, I don't care if it's just a phone call with 4 people and you're getting a conference call, or it's a meeting in the conference room, start on time. And I think listeners, if you know anything about me or listen to any of these episodes, I am early. I am always early, and
He's uncomfortably early.
Yeah, and I very much believe in being on time. That is a mantra of mine. When it comes to meetings, as long as I'm in control, I never, ever wait for anyone who is late. If we're having a meeting at 1:00, at 1:00 that meeting starts. I don't care if I'm the only one here. Sometimes I am.
You just start the meeting. So, Joe, what would you like to talk about today?
I am a stickler because the worst thing that I hate.
He's airing his grievances, listeners.
I know. What I really get fired up about.
I love Fiery Joe.
I'm telling you, I get fired up when you're on time, I'm on time, 3 people are on time. There are 2 people that are not there. And the person running the meeting says, okay, let's just wait a few minutes for those people. Why? Why are we waiting for the late people? No, they should come in. They should be embarrassed that they're late. They should sit down or whatever they're doing. And no, I am not catching you up on the topic. You figure it out, pal. And if it embarrasses you or you screwed up because you missed the important stuff that you missed, that's your career, buddy. But I'm telling you, if you do that, I'm sorry, I'll lower my voice now. If you do that when you're running a meeting, the next meeting, people are on time. But if you continue to wait, then people say, oh, yeah, no, I've got a few minutes. There's nothing wrong. Because if you're going to have a problem, text me. We have a million ways to communicate. This is 2022, not 1822.
Right.
Text, say what, and it better damn well be a good reason. But that's one of my pet peeves. So you start on time and you end on time.
Well, I agree with you. I think that my biggest pet peeve with that, because I think sometimes you're running from meeting to meeting, and I'm sometimes guilty of like 2 minutes, right? It's like, oh, there's 2 minutes. I can work on that, right? But my pet peeve is when somebody comes on late, and then like I've seen it where somebody shows up egregiously late, right? And then it's like, we're pretty much done with the meeting. We've discussed everything. We're to the end and we're ready to get off. And then somebody comes on and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was tied up or whatever. And then we're kind of going back to the beginning for this person.
Right. That's a no-no. Never do that.
And then I'm like, wait, we were done and we were about to get a few minutes back or whatever. Yeah. And now it feels like back to square one for this person. Why?
Exactly. And it's terrible. And everyone hates it. And I get it. You know, I'm not completely naive. I get it. If the person running the meeting is senior to me, you know, I'm not able to control that. I get it. But if you're in one of my meetings, don't do that. Ever.
Well, everybody, consider this your notice.
You're all fine because you're not going to be in any one of my meetings. But anyway, so I think that's, you know, and it all comes around to respect. To me, it becomes part of that respect of people's time, and you're respecting you value their time. So we held this meeting at 1:00. It's supposed to end at 1:30. You know what? Let it end at 1:30. Now, I have been in meetings where things like have been fantastic and we're getting to the bottom of something or uncovering something. Then there's no problem with saying, does anybody have a problem if we continue for 15 minutes? I just want to respect your time. That's fine. I mean, I'm not
right.
But don't just let it drift off, because to your point, there may be people that have another meeting, you know, to go to.
No, I agree with you. I think it's all about communication. And even to your point, if somebody does have a good reason, just communicate that. And then you can say, hey, we're getting started and we'll just catch you up. You know, you're going to have to just catch up and then we can connect offline.
Yeah, we'll catch up offline. And
exactly.
And if you report to me, you better have a darn good reason for why that you were not there. All right. I'll get off my high horse.
I would like to take a moment, though, and go back to something. So what did we talk about now? Okay, so start and end on time. And if you're not going to end on time, make sure that you've addressed that.
Or that people are
all able to stay on.
You may want to carry it to another time, set a new meeting.
And we talked about, you know, keeping an agenda, making sure that your outcome is clear, what it is that needs to be accomplished. I also just want to say something to that point. Gain consensus as much as you possibly can, right? Sometimes consensus needs to be established at a meeting, but with a customer meeting or, you know, with a group of people, give people the opportunity. And that's where, you know, sharing that in advance of here's what we hope to accomplish through this meeting gives people the opportunity to say either, is there anything else that you see that we should be thinking about? Is there anybody else that needs to be a part of this in order to make that happen? But give people the opportunity to tell you if there's something else that should be there or if you might be missing something.
Very good.
And I think that is especially true when I think about that from a sales customer facing role, putting out to the customer, here's what I'm thinking, and letting them come back and say, well, this is what I'd like to see, or this is what's important to me, or even style, right? I think the style of the meeting, how do they want this to go? Do you want a presentation or do you want a conversation?
That's very good, right?
That kind of thing.
Yeah, good. And you bring up a good point. There's a lot of reasons for a meeting.
Right.
You know, there's in company meetings and within department meetings or intra or inter-department meetings. In your case, they're sales presentations. So you have your team and you have the prospect, right? Or it could be post, you've gotten the deal and
right.
You're an implementation meeting. You know, there's any number of meetings, but all of them, to your point, should have an agenda and be clear and concise about it, have consensus around it, so you're not wasting the prospect's time or the implementation team or anything that's going around.
Right. And I think, you know, within your own company, it's easier because you have a culture and a style and kind of a way that you work.
Right.
But I think when you're dealing with other people, whether it's vendors, whether it's potential customers, actual customers, every company has a little bit of a different culture, a different way that they approach meetings. And I think that's where making sure that you've given them an opportunity to weigh in and make sure the style fits will really help as you're trying to drive things forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also the participants. Why don't you talk a little bit about the participants?
Well, I think that is, you want to limit, right? There's nothing worse than a meeting that has, 15 people on it with nobody knowing who's on point for their given topic. So I think it's important to, as you're thinking about the outcome, right? And as you're thinking about what is it that we have to accomplish? What is the whole purpose that we're having this meeting? And then who are the people that I believe, right, as I'm setting this up, need to be a part of this in order for us to get it to the next step? Because that's what a meeting does, right? The whole point of a meeting is to drive things forward, to either get a decision or get to a next
or
point.
Answer questions or present or something. Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of like being really selective about who are the right people that need to be a part of this and making sure that they understand what we believe their role is in this meeting. So limit the participants and really make sure that you have the right people, the people that either, maybe they have the expertise, other people that have the authority. So you make sure that you've got the right people to fulfill the role. And if they can't be there, that they have a delegate that is there in their place. So I think that's where people kind of need to understand, well, what's the outcome and what role do you see me having in this, so that they can say, yes, I'm the right person, or I need, somebody else. Yeah.
Again, it comes back to, have you thought out the purpose of the meeting, and have you set the agenda, and what is the purpose and the outcome, everything that you said.
Right. Now, to that point, Dad, have you ever been the meeting organizer and you've kind of done that, and then your meeting gets forwarded to a slew of other people? You just keep seeing acceptance from.
Oh yeah,
that's another pet peeve of mine. Yeah. You ever see that when you've got like all of a sudden your meeting is getting accepted and you're like, I don't even know who that person is, and you start looking. I think that that's something that, like, it's nice if you're going to pass it on to somebody else, for there to be some just, this is somebody else I'm engaging in, why. I don't know.
Oh, I agree. And I think, again, we're all realistic. Things happen.
And there's only so much time in a day. I get it.
Right. But it is nice to check with the host. Like, so for example, let's say it's an implementation of something or whatever, and you got the invite, and then now that you're looking at the agenda or whatever, and you say, can I have my technical contact? I think this might get more technical than I thought. Right. But kind of shoot a little note. Just say, I invited Sue to this meeting because
and I think it's helpful because sometimes the more that the audience expands, it may, and especially if that outcome wasn't clear from the person who was organizing it, you may all of a sudden create a challenge because you invited somebody that really has no place to be a part of the meeting at that point in time.
Right.
It's if it's going to be forwarded, if you're delegating to somebody else, if you can't be there and this is the person instead, I think it's just nice to call that out. I've forwarded it to this person because
I agree.
X,
Yeah. Very good. I like this.
Do you?
And you calmed me down. So you got me, the whole time thing, you got it out relatively early.
Is it because I got fired up now? You suddenly decided that now, we've got to kind of we've got to kind of balance each other here.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole beauty of us, right?
Yeah. So, as we're talking about this, Dad, I think back to our episode last week. We were talking a little bit about effective communication and sometimes the urges that people have finishing sentences and interrupting. And I think that is probably another area of effective meetings that, as the organizer or as a participant in a meeting, it's really important to rein in.
Yeah. Definitely.
I would imagine. So as we bring back Fiery Joe and we think about the timeliness and the way that, you run a meeting like a drill sergeant, what is your approach and thought around, like, how do you handle people talking over one another, or the sorry, you're on mute? What is your
Oh my God, there are so many things. Well, first of all, the talking over, I attempt to nip that in the bud relatively quickly, especially if it's a meeting where people are getting a little bit animated. You have to stop that pretty quick. And you can do it very, very nonchalantly and not insultingly. You just literally address it and just say, okay, everybody just hold up a minute. Sue, go ahead, say what you're going to say. And Bill, I'll let you go right after that. Like you have to take control. And I do want to say that because as the meeting organizer, don't be shy. You are in control. You're the leader of the meeting, even if you're not a senior person in the company or in that department or in that group. If you call the meeting, you're the boss for that meeting. And I think it will show you as a leader, as someone who's competent and confident in their ability to run that. So to your point about cross-talking and all that, even if it's professional and even if it's not adversarial, it's just some people just like to hear themselves talk, end it and do it quickly.
Well, I think it's important to establish up front how you want these things to work, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where the meeting is, if it's an in-person meeting, it's a little bit different, right? Because you're all in the room. If you're on a Teams meeting, right, or Zoom, you also have a lot of tools that you can use. So
Mute.
you can mute somebody.
Love it. Best invention ever.
But the problem is the person doesn't realize they've been muted.
Oh, it's even better because then everybody knows. Oh, my God.
But yes, you can mute people. You can also establish up front, hey, guys, we've got a lot of people on this call. If you would, raise your hand when you've got something to say. That little yellow hand goes up, and then you can, call on people as appropriate. I will also give a shout out to Bart Prince, who is my leader and was on our podcast not too long ago. Mm-hmm. But he does something really good where he will establish with people, and it's something that I've started doing as I watch and learn things that I think are pretty effective, is establishing for people how much time you have. So, hey guys, we're going to go around and get everybody's perspective in 1 minute or less.
Very good.
We only have a certain amount of time on the call. So use your words, be succinct and to the point. You're going to need to tell me what you're going to tell me in a minute or less.
Right. Yeah.
I think that helps because then people have, a little bit of the pressure to say, okay, I've got to say what I'm going to say and say it clearly.
Yeah. And I got to do it quickly. So stop the, back when we started, we did, a lot of people like to set the stage, but they want to build an entire stage, and we don't need the stage. We just need the message.
Yeah, well, you don't need to give every single play-by-play of a conversation you had, right? Because then what's the point of me not just having that conversation?
Right.
Just tell me what I need to know from it. Tell me the high points.
Very good. Do you want to do a recap? I feel like we did it last week, and it went really well.
I don't think we're done, Dad. What are you going to read?
Oh.
Well, I think the other thing that we did.
I was running an effective meeting, and I thought. I'm sorry, listeners. Do you have time to go a little bit longer on this?
I think the other thing, Dad, is setting the tone.
Yes.
Right? That smile. Making sure that you've got the right level of formality, the right level of informality, and making sure that you're setting a tone for a good meeting, a collaborative meeting, and all of that.
That was it? That's why we went overtime? I don't know.
Well, we forgot about an important part.
What, the tone?
No, we set the tone, right?
Yeah.
So you've got your tone set, okay. Dad, you're fresh. Your tone is off today, Dad. We're setting the tone for a joke of a meeting right now. Anyway, sorry, listeners. We got off track a little bit here. But one final thing, and I think we can end with this last point, which is have notes. And, whether the meeting requires like implementation meetings, they really require meeting minutes. They require clear outcomes, who owns what and by when. But make sure that you've got the appropriate follow-up from the meeting to ensure that people know what their actions are and what their next steps are. Because I think there's nothing worse than a meeting that, you talk through a lot and then you get to the end and you're at time and everyone's just like, okay, thanks, guys. And then what moved forward. So make sure that you end the meeting with going back and making sure it's clear. Okay, Joe, you had this as your next step, and Christina, you're to do this by this point in time. And then what's next? We're going to check in. Is there another meeting that we're going to have next week to finalize this? Can we go back and forth via email to, firm all this up and have a decision by Wednesday? But clearly establishing what comes next after the meeting ensures that you did something productive with that time.
That's very good, because people, it's human nature. It's like the meeting ends and it's like, whew, I don't think I have to do anything. This is great. I can go back to what I was doing. But with your clear takeaway, so Joe, you have to do this, and Sue, you have to do this, and Christine, you have to do that. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have to just look at everything as our time is valuable. The other people's time is valuable, and just filter. Why are we doing this? Well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And if we don't have clear outcomes and all of that, then what's the point?
And 2 weeks go by and there's
a meeting shouldn't just
happens.
it shouldn't just be check of a box to say we had the meeting. There should be a reason for the meeting, and if we don't have next steps and action, then what was the point?
Very good. Now can you recap?
Oh man. We kind of got all over the place in this one, but I think
I'm giving you a
so
deliverable. Give us a recap.
All right, listeners, let me try and recap this. Why don't you recap, Dad?
Because I can't.
At least you know your strengths. So listeners, I think step 1, we said start on time and end on time. So that's an important part of this. Number 2, make sure you've got a real clarity in the outcome and what you need to accomplish for the meeting intent. Gain consensus and make sure that there's a clear agenda. Stick to it. Number 3, make sure you've got the right people in the room. Limit the people, right? You don't want to overdo it, but make sure you have the right people in the room. And as a recipient, if you're thinking of forwarding that meeting out to everybody in your phone book, just check first, I think, or at least make it clear who you're forwarding it to and why, so that, you give the organizer an opportunity to say, okay, I understand, who's in this meeting now, or, hey, I think this might be getting a little bit too broad. Make sure that you establish a good protocol for how you're going to handle meeting timing, who talks when, interruptions. Use your technology if it's in a team setting. What else did we say, Dad? Oh, clarity. So be concise, be respectful of other people's time. Make sure that, you're really asking the other people, how do you want this to go? Do you want a presentation? Do you want a conversation? What format is good? Set a good tone. And then really, I think the final thing is make sure that you do something with that, right? So if it's meeting minutes, if it's clarity of next steps and who owns what.
Assign the roles.
And responsibilities. So I think that might be 9 steps. I don't know. I lost count.
Well, the count doesn't matter.
The count doesn't matter.
It's the brilliance that we have imparted.
Oh, well, Dad.
Okay, brilliance. You have put
guys,
forth.
I'm sorry. I know he makes me a little sick with we've got to humble you, Dad.
Well, I said you.
No, you said it's the brilliance that we have.
Yeah, but then you corrected me by your coming back. So.
Ay.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, Dad, this was fun.
This was good. Yeah.
I enjoy you when you're all fired up. So
thank you.
Let's keep this coming. We'll maybe come up with another topic. Listeners, a challenge to you. For those of you that know Joe, please send ideas for topics that will enrage him, because Fiery Joe may be our favorite Joe. And if you can come up with a topic that particularly grinds his gears and gives him a platform to air some more grievances, please send it our way.
I'll take extra blood pressure medication, so
there you go.
No problem.
And listeners, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, subscribe, send to a friend, and we really appreciate you staying with us and listening each week.
Thank you so much. Wherever you are, whatever your story, thanks for spending time with us this morning. Now, go and make a difference in your world.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.